Praise the Lord. My name is Esther Wambia. I love Christ. I love talking about families because, of course, I've said time and again, a family is what makes the world beautiful and everything in it. It is only about the family that even brings us closer to our Maker, and it makes us feel that we have a sense of belonging. So today I want us to talk about 3 types of a family. You know, there are 3 kinds of a family. And these 3 kinds of a family are the ones we belong. Actually, we have come from one of the families that I will talk about. And depending on which family you are brought up in, you will either succeed in your marriage or fail, depending on how you grew up in that kind of a family and how you yourself decided, or rather got yourself socialized, and probably what you learned from the family you grew up in. And one of the families I want to talk about is about the dictator kind of a family, dictatorship kind of a family, where in that family it is just about one person. It is one man show. There are some families where the father is the only one who speaks in that family, is the only one who says what is to be done. He's the only one who does what is supposed to be done, and he's the only one who is the final authority in the family. And there is nobody else who can do anything besides what the father or the man of the house has said. So this kind of dictatorship, where nobody is involved in decision making, you find that there is a lot of issues that happens in this family. For example, you find that probably when this man is not at home, there is nothing that can be done. There is nothing, nobody else can even have a tentative decision. The buck stops with this person, and it happens that whenever the man is not in the home, or whenever something happens to this person, or he's sick, or he's incapacitated, or things are not happening, you find that this home is just kind of does not move. Nothing happens. And then you have put that family, that home, everybody else has been put in a place where they cannot think. So nobody thinks in that family. There is no thinking, because your thinking does not help. Even the woman in this home has been put a lot of amewekwa baridi. Huyu mama kwa hii boma, there are some women when wamewekwa baridi, they cannot even, you find if you go to this home, for example, like this season when the maize imekuwa tayari, when the food, the crop in the shamba, in the farm is ready and people need to eat, like for example, they want to eat mahindi choma and that kind of thing, and the father has gone on a journey, maybe he has gone on a journey for 3 months or 2 months. You find that in that home, hakuna mwenye atachoma mahindi, nothing will happen in that. People will just be watching the maize from the shamba, because the father is not there to tell them that they should eat that maize. You find that people are in bondage. They are actually suppressed and oppressed. There is no freedom in that family. And you find that the person who grew up in this family, who grew up in this family, has a very big problem in getting into a place where he can be able to be accommodative, because this person has been suppressed or oppressed, and has learned, and if it's a man, he has learned that the authority or the buck stops with him. So if this man gets married to somebody's daughter, for example, a daughter who has been brought up in a different kind of atmosphere, unapata that they cannot live together. And that's the reason some of these families, or many families, have a lot of issues, because you find that this person has been brought up in a closed family, a family that is so closed that it's only one person who makes a decision. You find that this man, or this young man who has been brought up in this family, has learned that a woman has no say. A woman is just like a piece of wood, or a piece of metal, or a cup, or anything. There are some women who have been given an atmosphere where they're actually not a stakeholder in this family. They are just there to be seen and not to be heard. And actually that kind of a family, you find that the children brought up in this family, they have a lot of issues. Wana shida nyingi sana huko nje. They are not able to balance anything, because you find that they are not, there is no freedom. And anybody who has been brought up in a situation where there is no freedom, it is very difficult for this person to also give somebody else freedom. And you find that it becomes very difficult for this kind of a person. And this man, who is the man in the home, if something happens and this person dies, it becomes very, very difficult for these people now to continue from where he stopped, because actually they have not been taught to think. Freedom helps people to think. Anybody who has been brought up in a balanced home or a family where there is freedom, there is this person who thinks on their own. And that is why you find these children that are brought up here, when they go outside there, it becomes very hard to make decisions. It becomes very hard for them even to make their own personal decisions, leave alone making decisions for other people. It becomes very difficult. So it is a very, very stressful kind of a family. And the man has brought up the family in a very, very difficult situation. You find that these are women, when their husbands dies, for example, and God forbid, and they are left alone, they have to kind of marry another man. Actually, kama ni mama hata amezeeka, they do things that they leave the society in kind of a shock. Because this woman will just not be able to live on her own. They cannot be able to make, she cannot be able to even kuendelesha watoto penye wamebaki, penye wamewachwa. Sometimes people get married in the old age. Unashangaa, what is wrong with this woman? Amewachwa na ng'ombe, amewachwa na nyumba, amewachwa na vitu, this woman has been left with totally everything that can help her move on. But you find that this woman, instead of moving on, she decides to go and bring another man, who will come and start now kind of, mismanaging what the husband has left, because it is not the problem of these women. Sometimes we blame women who have been left in those conditions, and we blame them for being mismanaging what has been left. But it is just the environment they were given by their spouses. Their spouses did not give them the environment of thinking. They did not have an open mind. The man thought that I am actually the only person, and they forget that God has given them just maybe a time to live with this family, and they forget that they may not be there forever, and they forget that something can happen to them. They put this family in a very awkward position, such that these families are not happy people. It is good to understand that we are not here forever. We are here shortly, and sometimes it's very important for us to understand the families we are bringing up, and what it is that they are supposed to do on their own. That is one kind of a family. There is another family where the man is alone, and the woman and the children are one camp. And you find that in this home, the man cannot say anything, because whatever he says, the woman and the children, they are in one camp. This woman decided that I'm going to have my own mob justice. In this home, there are homes where there is a mob justice, and this mob justice is against the man, And you find that this man, whatever, even if he has given them freedom or whatever he has decided to do in this family, whatever he says, nobody takes it up. Why? Because the woman decided to be now the force. And you know what happens to the woman? When the man becomes the force, normally, the probability that the woman and the children becomes another force is so high. But some of these families, like the one I talked about, is where the children and the woman are submissive to this man, and they are put in a situation where they don't have a freedom. But I'm talking about now another family where the man has given the freedom, the man is ready to work with everybody. But now the woman decides, I'm the mimi ndio kusema in this home. I'm the one who will be able to say in this home. And what the woman does, as the children grow up in her hands, she kind of brings them into her camp. She socializes her children towards herself, towards her camp, as against, against their father. So what happens finally? The children, of course, grow, and as they grow up and you socialize them towards yourself as a woman, the children grow up with a negative attitude and mind towards their father. And finally, as they continue having some, they reach a point where they can make decisions, and they reach a point where they can also become a force. And what happens is the man is on the other side alone, and the children and the mother are on this side. And what normally happens in such families, you find that there is no respect. These children are brought up in a situation where they cannot respect the father. They cannot respect the man of the home. They cannot respect any other person except, doing things against him, as, they're in one camp with their mother. And what happens, this man, either he moves out and marries another woman, or he remains there and curses these very children. And what happens normally is that these children and their mother, of course, when the curse comes, their mother does not get, it does not get affected with the curse. But the curse affects the children. and you find that their families wana mambo inawafuata. Things are happening in this family and you really wonder what is happening. Because the children were taught to disrespect their father, and their father said words, and those words are catching up with the children and their generation. And you find this generation does not do well. You can find a generation that has a lot of money and a lot of wealth, but people are just dying in this family and things don't seem to hold, and mambo tu inaendelea na mambo si mazuri, because these children were taught to disrespect their father. So depending on the family one is brought up, it happens that the family you are going to continue making, or rather the generations that come from these families, they are either going to be good families or bad families. And whichever family you find yourself in, you find that it is not a balanced family. It is not a family that you can cherish. It is not a family that you can be proud of. So it is very, very important the way we bring up our children. Mothers, please don't put children in your camp. Let the children respect their fathers. Let the children acknowledge the leadership of their father. And that is where now the problem comes in. Because the moment a camp is created, either many times men are not able to convince children to be in their camp. So it is either a dictatorship kind of a family or a camp which is mob justice. Mob justice as against one person. Mob justice, when there is a mob justice, what happens? The characteristics of a mob justice is that, one, they don't think. So in this family, the mother is not thinking, the children are not thinking. So everything they are doing, as long as it favors them, they don't care what happens to the other person. They really don't care what happens to their father. They don't care whether the father is being oppressed or whether the father is being is kind of being harassed. They really don't care. And so because they don't care, they actually don't even care about the consequences. And anytime you reach a point where you don't care about the consequences, that's the beginning of your failure. Anybody who does not think about the consequence of their actions, that is exactly what how the failures come into the family. And that is the reason why you find that the curse comes because somebody does not think. And because this person does not think, their mother does not even think about the children and the kind of generations she wants to have. So she does not care about anything. And that kind of a family is where the family is balanced. The family sits as a family and makes decisions. The father and the mother, the husband and the wife, the spouses, they sit and make decisions together. So that as they continue making decisions and as they continue doing things together, the children, as they come up, they find an environment where everybody is acceptable in this family, where everybody is part and parcel of this family. So the children and the parents, they are actually stakeholders in this family. And you find that God commands a blessing, because the Bible is very clear in Psalms 133 that where there is unity, God commands a blessing. So you find that this family is blessed. This family is growing up, and the children, they tap from their parents. They learn to become responsible. They learn to think. They learn to contribute. They learn to involve. They learn to work together. There are some people actually, as even in the offices where we work, in the places where we go, and even in the businesses, the people we interact with, there are people who are not team players. There are people who are lone rangers. There are people who do things, they just want to do things alone. Sometimes don't blame this person. This person has grown in a family where there was no teamwork. It is either a dictatorship kind of a family or a family where there was mob justice. Sometimes we talk of mob justice and we are like, tuko hapo wengi. People, when they are many and they are doing something against somebody, they don't care. And that's why you find when somebody has done something huko nje, we can learn even from the things we call maandamano in this country. When people are just there and they want to kind of do something together, people don't think. And that is why you find people are dying and nobody cares whether as long as it's not your brother who is dying, as long as it's not your sister who is dying, as long as it's not your parent. And that is why when people go and sit back and they realize the damage that has been done, you find that it is so much. The same thing happens to the families. Sometimes we do things without thinking. Mothers, wives, they do things without thinking. Fathers, they do things without thinking. And at the end of the day, you find that, this problem or the repercussion or the consequence goes to even many generations. Inaenda kwa the first generation, the second generation, the third generation, because people somewhere never thought. But when you are coming from such a family, you find that you become a social misfit. There are some places, you find that when you go, people don't want you. Kuna watu wengine wanasemanga mimi watu wanaipendi. People don't love me. It is not that people don't love you. It is because you're not a team player. It is because you're not able to work with people. It's because you're not able to live with people. It's because the environment you're brought up was different and was not conducive and was bad. And whatever was put in you is what people don't want. But those people who are brought up in a balanced family, where they sit together and make decisions, where the father is a team player, where the mother is a team player, where they bring up their children as also stakeholders and they become team player. These children, as you usher them outside there, they become team players. And so when they meet people who are not team players, you find that they withdraw. They are not able to work with them. They are not able to live with them. And that is why you find that families have different problems. What happens in this family is not what happens in this family, because the environment they were brought up had different problems, or they had different, people are working for that families differently. So it's very, very important before we get married. It's very important to understand the kind of a family you're interacting with. It's good to know what kind of a people are these. Are they people, as you visit those homes, young men, young ladies, as you visit these homes, be able to be very careful, be able to be observant. Observe, look at what happens in this family. Look at what happens in this family. Do these people work together? Do these people live together? Are they team players? Can they be able to work together with anybody else? Because whatever you're going to get from that family is what will determine the kind of a family you're going to have. If you get a family, a person from a family where the mother ndio ana kambi yake, and you get a daughter from that family, my friend, you are going to be lonely in that home, because this girl you are getting married to, she will come with the same mind, with the same thought, with the same character of building up a camp. And she will end up building a camp with her children as against the man, against the husband, or against the father of the home. So you start saying that my children don't love me. My children don't care about me. It is not that they don't care about you. There is some poison that has been put in them. And that poison is the one that is working against you. So mothers, spouses that are women like me, let us not fight our husbands through our children. Let us not allow our children to be cast. Let us not allow our children to not have, the generations. When we work against our husbands with our children, we are simply killing our generations. And when you kill your generations, it becomes very difficult for you to, leave a legacy. What kind of a legacy do you want to leave? I want to leave a legacy where my children are blessed. I want to leave a legacy where my children are, team players. So when you have a difference between you and your husband, if you have a difference between you and your wife, sort out your issues, the two of you. Don't involve these children. These children, they have their own generations. They have their own homes. They have their own families to build. And your word is a very determinant to what kind of a family these people are going to build. So it is very, very important to look at your background. If you are a man there or a woman there and you have issues in your family, sit back and observe and look at where you came from. What kind of a background were you brought up? What kind of a family did you grow up in? How can you change? Some of these things actually that we have learned from our parents, and they have really inclined, they have held us together, they have, they are kind of foundations that are in our lives. We can sit back and ask God to take us, out of those foundations. We can break those foundations through God. There is nothing that is permanent. All that is permanent is God. So if we can ask God to break the foundations, to break the things that we were brought up in, the things that have made us be people that are not good, the things that have worked against us, we can be able to develop something that will make our families be successful. So young man, young lady, be able to look at the families that we were brought up. Some of these things, they are very difficult to kind of get out of them. Vitu hizi, they are very difficult. Some of them, they are inclined in us. They have really held us. Some of them are foundations that takes time to break. But I can assure you, it is important to break those foundations than leave your children in a mess, than leave your children without a generation. My friend, if you want to build a generation, look at what is holding your family, what is messing up your family, and work on it. Work on whatever it is that was given to you or was passed on to you by your parents. Our parents, some of them, they are failures. They are actually failures in their marriages. And some of the things they did have affected our own marriages. Kindly try to look at what is affecting your marriage and work on it. May God bless you so much as you work on your marriage. I believe You can be able to observe what is eating you up. Some of these things, you understand them, you know them, work on them. God bless you so much as we continue from there. You can subscribe in my YouTube. God bless you.